Last month, my electric bill was around $1,000 thanks to this guy, and that's why I'm going to be getting rid of it. Alright, so I'm breaking this video down into three main categories. The first one is going to be our performance and practical tests. The second one is going to be, should you ditch your Intel computer, or if you have a Mac Pro and switch over to the M chip or Mac Studio. Third is going to be, if you decide to go with Mac Studio, which exact configuration you need depending on the workload when it comes to Resolve. First of all, I want to give you the exact configuration of this Mac Pro. There's a lot of stuff that's been modified, so let's go through it. 3.2 gigs, 16 core, 32 gigs of memory, and then two Radeon Pro Vega 2s, 32 gig each, 1 TB SSD storage, afterburner card, and then the grand total was $14,239. And I think that does not include tax. So it was like well over $16,000 after tax. Then I ordered OWC's 128 gigs of RAM. That was $964. Then I ordered another batch of RAM, 64 gigs for $469, and another one for 64 gigs that was $469. And then I ordered a Sonnet Fusion SSD M.2 PCIe card so I can have internal RAID, and that was $430 just for the card, and then 4 2 terabyte SSDs M.2 NVMe's for $1,162, and hopefully that includes tax. So doing the math, I think we're well over $22,000 for this Mac Pro on the right side. And the Mac Studio that we're using is this guy right here. So it's pretty much maxed out in every single configuration. So we got the 24 core with 76 cores of GPU, and then it has 192 gigs of memory, and then it has 8 terabytes of SSD. And the final cost was this exact number, $8,800, because if you buy something through B&H, through the Paybu program, you don't have to pay taxes, and especially if you own a company. $8,800 versus $22,000 plus for the Mac Pro. So let's see if the Mac Pro is actually worth its price. We recently did a survey. Majority of you, regardless of the skill set, are struggling with shot matching, skin tones, balancing, and working with 8-bit footage. So I created a 1-hour-long free training that covers all of that. Plus, we'll wrap up the training with an extensive Q&A, and you'll also get a link to download the practice footage, power grades, and some of my personal LUTs. Link to the training is in the description below. Let's get back to the video. All right, so let's start with our first test. How do each of these systems perform with H.264 footage? So right now what I got going on here is a simple in and out color space transform, and then I have some primaries, I have some windows, and I have some color warper action going on, and I have a power window here, and then some sharpening applied, and then finally I have a texture pop, which actually is very taxing on your system. Before I start the test, let's pop open our activity monitor on both systems. So we got our GPU, which is going to be the most important component when you're inside Resolve, then our CPU cores, and here we can set this to memory. So we can see how much of the physical memory is being used. And let's go ahead and play this and see what happens. So we're basically getting a real-time playback with a bunch of stuff that I have applied here, and usually it won't be as smooth. What happens if I run it a little bit faster? So now I'm playing it on 2x, you can see it here, and then overall memory usage is about 50 gigs. It's running really smooth. It is maxing out our GPU, so that is one thing to keep in mind, because you have different configuration when you're building your Mac Studio. So you can go with 60 cores or 72 cores, and I'm here to tell you, if you're going to give it more cores, Resolve is going to take advantage of it. So that is a huge plus to keep in mind. All right, so now let's move on to our 2019 Mac Pro, and let's try to run the same thing. We have the same exact node tree right here. Let's see how it performs. It looks like it's running in real time, but we can clearly see that it's super choppy. It's not smooth. Let's go here, let's do 2x. And now this becomes an absolutely massive problem when you're in your edit page. I know a lot of people that are watching this video are not just colorists. They are content creators, YouTubers, myself included. So when I'm actually recording these videos, I would export a graded version H.264 into ProRes and then bring that ProRes back in as a transcoded file and then edit off of that. So it added so much extra time and an additional step that could easily be avoided if you're working on the Mac Studio. So that's a massive win for the Mac Studio. If either of these systems or both of these systems successfully handle Red RAW, that means they can pretty much handle any other type of RAW. So I have Red Komodo right here, shot in 6K. So we have in and out CST. Then I'm applying noise reduction, and I'm actually applying pretty heavy settings to really see how it stacks up. We have scatter by Filmbox. We have some primaries. We have qualifier action happening, and I'm using color warper. So with all these things in mind, let's do a quick playback and let's see what kind of performance we'll see here. So we're getting about 13 frames of real-time playback with all of this heavy effects on our footage. Now, this would be the kind of stuff that I will use on my actual professional gigs. So I don't want to give you a test that is just like generic and I'm playing like 17 streams of 8K footage. Nobody does that. We have the same exact note tree here on the Mac Pro. What are we getting here? 8 to 10 frames, basically on average 9 frames. And it seems really, really choppy. I mean, you can see, I want to go and apply Magic Mask and then see how well it handles that. I'm going to time this and see how long it takes. Let's change the quality to better. And let's start the stopwatch right now. Okay, it took about 21 seconds. Let's see how it goes on the Mac Pro now. Boom. All right, let's see how long it takes. So this is well past 21 seconds, still going. So I got it done in 33 seconds instead of 21 seconds. And that's why I personally don't use Magic Mask, Depth Map, and Relight effects on my Mac Pro. It just takes so long that I'm just like, I'm not dealing with it. I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna turn on user. And as soon as I do that, it's gonna start caching, okay? And total memory used 63.78 gigs. 30 gigs in cached files. This is actually a commercial that I'm working on. It is using RE Raw, so it's going to slow things down a little bit more. And the effects are kind of crazy with what I'm doing here. There's tons and tons of third-party plugins, OFX that are built in Resolve. Okay, so 1 minute and 34 seconds. Go here and user, and let's go. I mean, it's going at a pretty good pace, and same theme continues. It's taking full advantage of the GPU cores. The CPU, a lot of it is just sitting idle, which is going to be the case. And this is the moment to talk about like why you don't need to max out anything and everything, especially if you know your workload. Okay, so I got it done. I actually stopped it a little bit earlier. So it got it done around minute and 39 seconds instead of minute and 34 seconds. So like a 4 or 5 second difference here. Not a massive deal. You listen to this. That sound that's coming from the Mac Pro, you guys might not be able to hear it because I'm going to have noise reduction applied, which I usually do for my sound because this thing gets so loud. It puts out so much hot air from the back that this room gets insanely hot. So then we have to turn the air on. Every other room in the house is super cold, but here it's barely like a decent temperature. And because of that, our normal electric bill is between $700 to $950 every single month. So just imagine if I replace this, how much money I'm going to be saving. We're inside effects, video transitions, and let's try some of these out. Buttery smooth, no problem at all. But what if we do some difficult ones like the block glitch? What happens if we use some third-party transitions? A lot of these I never used because it would be so slow to preview these on my Mac Pro. I can pretty much just play anything and everything. It handles it. Now let's try to do the same thing on our Mac Pro. So it's a little choky. It's not too bad, but it's still a little bit. You see? Like when I just go all the way back and forth, it does like, see, it's like lagging behind just a tiny bit. So this is where it really starts to struggle. I mean, it's applying the effect, but I can't really see it in action. It's like really, really choking and struggling. We didn't have that happening here, right? So like if we go here again, and if I just go on this effect, and if I go like this, you see this? So let's look at this. Like if I go back and forth, you see like how much it's lagging. But if I go here and apply the same effect, you can see like how it's just moving with it. So I can see what's really happening. So all of this adds up. And then this turns into like whether you're going to use the effect or you're not going to use the effect. All right, so now I want to try out the depth map and just see how responsive it is on each system. So on our Mac Studio, let's drop that on. And again, one of those effects that I just always avoided because of how sluggish it was. So this is what it looks like here. And if I go and invert it, that's what we get, but let's clean it up. I just want to change the background and I want to leave my guy as is. So I'm going to go under adjust map levels. Even if I were to use my mouse, so if I go all the way, it follows up. It's not that far behind. Like, look at this. So I can have a lot of control and then do a playback. We're getting about 8.5-ish frames. Now let's try the same thing with Mac Pro. Now let's move this around and see how long it takes. So you see, first of all, like the slider is like lagging behind. And then when I move it, it's not necessarily moving to like where I'm going. Like, look at this. This just adds so much latency. But look at the actual problem happens here. So like if I do this, like look at how far behind it is. Now it made the change. So that right here just cannot work. If I go here, like look at this. Now it made the change. It just becomes then impossible to work with this tool. And now if I come back here, it's like changing right here. I went there and it's changing it. Like, look at this. I went there and it's changing it. I went there and it's changing it. You get the idea. There are so many tools in Resolve, especially the newer versions, that I'm just discouraged to use with the Intel chip. This is where we're actually going to see our storage speed. That's the internal drive. And if I run it, I'm getting about 5,800. So it can go up to 6,800, right? And it just goes to like 5,000. It can basically play back 8K raw with no issues at all. So the Mac Pro performance is third of what we're getting with the Mac Studio. So right there, another massive difference. But this is where the benchmarks don't really mean much, because what I want to find out is that, do you actually need that? Does it actually really matter from day to day? So what I found is Glyph's NVMe 8 terabyte external drive. And if I go here and run the test, it is giving me 27, 28 like read and write. And it is way cheaper. The 8 terabyte drive was only $1,200 compared to the 2,000 plus that you will pay for the Mac storage. Yes, it's faster, but this is where I'm saying, like, do you actually need that speed? One additional way to like really see the difference between the two drives would be start and it's going. Let's see how much it's using. 2.96. 25 seconds in, done. So 26 seconds is what it took to transfer 70 gigs. So now let's try to do the same exact thing here. So it literally took the same amount of time. Like, look at this, 26 seconds on both machines. And this is what I'm trying to tell you. Then do you have to spend the additional money, or can you just get like a 1 terabyte or a 2 terabyte internal and then just get an external drive? Not to mention that now you have so much more flexibility. You can unplug it, plug it into your MacBook Pro, take it anywhere, and you are travel ready. I want to export projects with each machine, and then I want to see what the experience is like browsing the web and then also working in a different tool. I have this entire project that I want to export. It's in the queue, and let's go ahead and kick it out. So now let's go here in our ScreenFlow, and let's just say if I'm editing here and I'm like flying through, okay? So even if I do 2x, if I do 4x, like nothing is choking. Like, look at how smooth this is. And now what if I go to YouTube right here? Let's click on one of the videos right here. So look at that. And I'm flying through. So let's just go move through and see how it handles it. While my cores are going crazy, my GPU is going crazy. So let's go look at our RAM. And maximum memory, we've used up to 118 gigs used. So what this should also get to tell you, do you really need 192 or can 128 be good enough? All right, so now let's try to do the same exact thing right here. All right, so it's exporting. But what if I go to my ScreenFlow and I started working? So this is pretty smooth. That's not bad. And then another thing that I want to do is let's just go here. If I just start a new video, it pops it open, and if I just go here, you see like it's just kind of choking, and it has like a little wheel up. Like, what is that about? And the comments are still not on yet, right? And if I want to play it faster, like, what is that? It just does not encourage a productivity mindset. So what I usually do is I get majority of my work done on my MacBook Pro, and it's just a M1. I don't even think it's M1 Max. It's like a base M1. So let's go export 13 gigs, 4K, 422 LT. So let's do this. Boom, done. 14 seconds. So let's see how long it takes on the Mac Pro. And all right, so let's get it going. And the funny thing is that it's not using GPU at all. So that's a massive difference. Okay, so 1 minute and 8 seconds compared to 13 seconds. So the difference is absolutely night and day. And then let's finally talk about the travel aspect of it. And because the Mac Studio is such a small package, it's basically like 2 iMac minis put together. You can just easily throw it in your backpack and just travel with it. That's not something I can do with the Mac Pro. So when it comes to performance and practicality, we just saw that the Mac Studio absolutely destroyed my $22,000 Mac Pro. Should you switch? Freaking-absolutely, because you know how much money I'm going to be losing selling my Intel Mac Pro. I'll be lucky to get like $4,000 or $5,000, which is just absurd because this just does not happen to Macs. Now, which configurations that I would recommend you getting? That's why we wanted to do all those different types of tests, because it taught us that, do we need 192 gigs? No, we don't. Do we need 8 terabytes of SSD? No, we don't. Do we need 76 cores of GPU? Absolutely. So keeping that in mind, let's build it out now. So if I go on B&H, so of course I want 76 core of GPU power. I don't want to go past 128. Why? Because the maximum that we hit was like 112 or 102 or something, right? So 128 still gives us a lot of room. We're totally fine. Storage, I do want 2 terabytes. Why? I will have 750 gigs reserved for the Mac OS, and then I'm going to have 1.25 terabyte reserved for cache. And then that way, my 8 terabyte NVMe external drive that I have, I'm just going to use as my online drive. So you need this exact system to get the best bang for the buck, especially if you're working in Resolve. So there you have it, a performance test based on real world scenarios, and I'll see you in the next video.